last pass, the tremendous fundraising efforts of John and Amanda Remain and all at the Aircraft Restoration Company through this, the NHS Spitfire, over the last 18 months or so, and we use it to thank all of those working for the National Health Service. Formation was led by John Gowdy, leading such a big formation as an air show for around this country during the past 18 months. Tens of thousands of names written upon it in support of NHS charities. And Paul Bonham, with that final solo display and that final landing, brings our display to a close, and we just like to say thank you to all the participating pilots. Thank you if you've come in on the buses for doing your bit to reduce the traffic congestion. As Colin said, do follow the directions of the marshals on your way out. And our thanks, Colin, also to our team from on site who...
So they were tied. So they found the gaps between the revolutions here and shoot the propeller. That's why I took 1, 2,
4 and 5 going first, and there's 1, 2 and 3, RD8s all over the sky. As if to loop, but they're rolling out on the down line. And they're heading in towards each other for the first of the crossing manoeuvres, the crossing flute. Immediately both breaking away onto the B-axis, heading away from us. And numbers 1, 2 and 3 now resuming their part in front of us, in on the 45-degree line from the left, the battle loop. And they break onto the 45-degree line. The team member I haven't mentioned so far is Raven Ford, Gerald Williams, former professional rugby player in Wales, New Zealand, and others which we'll come on to. Aerial warfare, don't forget, was a relatively new practice by the time of the 1914 to 18 conflict. And the aircraft were, by today's standards, very primitive, simple machines. Flying fabric, of course, in 1912 had been set up only 2 years before the outbreak of World War I. So training schemes were still being developed in the display that's about to come, but a very controlled depiction of the sort of melees of the First World War, which they would fly without oxygen and without parachutes. So imagine that you're standing on a British airfield somewhere in France, close to the lines, a large group of aircraft heading in towards the trenches. There goes the gunfire of the defenders on the ground. And here come those British and German aeroplanes about to engage the other SE-5A out to our left. With one SE-5A in behind it, and there's the other SE-5A followed by the second Dreidecker. Now we talk about fighter aircraft of the First World War. That term wasn't really in use by the British. We called them scouts. And in the case of the SE-5A, SE stood for Scout Experimental. It was an aircraft that was flown by 21 British Empire squadrons during the First World War and 2 American units. It's the mount of many of the leading aces of the time, like Albert Ball, Mick Mannock, James McCutland, Billy Bishop, all flew SE-5As, the 7th scale replicas, and that's a very impressive smoke crew. The First World War would have involved generally many more aircraft than this, dozens of them, in extremely close-in tail chasers. Nowadays we talk about beyond visual range combat being undertaken by today's Typhoons, F-35s and so forth. Nothing like that during the Great War. Aircraft would constantly be circling, climbing, diving, accelerating, slowing, just to get onto their opponent's tails. And when we say that, we mean right close onto them, using the rudder to make turns and just get in a shot.
And of course, in early stages of the war, the aircraft were used primarily for reconnaissance.
Indeed.
And pilots took to shooting at each other using revolvers and such like. And then before long, they were fully armed with machine guns and all the rest of it. Much like the Second World War, the developments came very quickly. But the engineering revolution in the First World War was probably faster than in the Second World War.
Yes, I think that's probably a very sensible comment. You see something of that with the two triplanes that we have here. The Sopwith triplane entered service in 1917 with the Royal Naval Air Service. Its use was relatively brief, but it was very influential. It was successful. Scored 87 kills in 3 months with the Sopwith triplanes. It's one of those aircraft you can see there, just coming past the control tower now with its Fokker contemporary right on its tail. And we're talking about that development. The Fokker DR1 was developed in significant part because the Sopwith triplane was seen to be such a good performer. But even though the Fokker DR1 is today so emblematic of the Imperial German Air Service during the First World War, just 320
when the Oscars were brought into 651 Squadron, once again by the Royal Artillery, flown by those pilots, but under Royal Air Force designated squadrons. But they did an extraordinary work in air carrier ability, again, a very, very useful technology, concept, but this time much more rugged and robust than the B-72. We have behind in the Osto, we have Paul McNulty. Again, all ex-Army Air Corps pilots, all with operational experience. And those two aircraft very, very neatly showing, again, the development. Now, the Ostra that we're flying here today is a Mark 9, referred to very much as the GTI of the Oster fleet. I'm sure you will have seen many Osters here in the past. But very similar to the way the Spitfire developed, with the Griffon ending up with twice the speed of the original, the power, I should say, of the Mark 1. And then giving up his free time to volunteer to fly these for you today. Bringing up the rear Paul Stanton. Again, a hugely experienced operational scout pilot. And now volunteering pretty much full time with us, doing a number of tasks. A beautiful formation there. And you can see here with the different power curves, one or two will be screaming and saying, I would need more speed up, whereas others, particularly the Sioux, very challenging helicopter fly, will be requesting everybody to... when you put all the levers fully forward in that, you may have heard it on other aircraft here today, the tips virtually go supersonic, and that of course is the marvellous roar that you get. The Sioux chasing down the Oster now, and the Beaver just repositioning as a result of the main runway there already being occupied for a next departure, and we'll just pause for a moment while they sort that out. But nonetheless, actually a rather neat opportunity to see two dissimilar pairs. Right in the centre now, the Oster and the Sioux. The Sioux will be challenged always in hot and tricky and also in downwind conditions. So as he puts the tail onto this on-ground, ability to stop short. little bit trickier, of course, on skis, but also on floats, the retardation of the speed is very effective, so you get into very small lakes. But now you see a little more close up the robustness of the Westland Scout, and you can imagine the amount of things that we're able to strap on it.
Well, as George mentioned, we got our US Navy fighters off to go and hold. And we're sticking with maritime aviation for our next item, another of the Duxford heavies after the B-17 operations in many different theatres. As is traditional, getting airborne in absolutely nothing. This, as I say, Wasp 18-cylinder air-cooled radial of 2,100 horsepower, powering this aircraft to a maximum speed of 421 miles an hour. It's just 27 feet 7 inches long, wingspan of just over 35 feet. Something of penetrating vertical performance. Brian Smith there taxiing past us in the Corsair on completion of his display. We saw his son Nick in action earlier indeed in one of the Mustangs, the latest father and son. We acted together on the display circuit. And now finals on Blair Cat. Into one piece of sky as possible. Others would argue, including many other Battle of Britain fighter pilots, that the big wing was simply too unwieldy, too slow to get into the fight. Well, whatever the rights and wrongs of that debate, it remains a key part of RAF Duxford's wartime history. A wing that contained the Spitfires of number 19 Squadron flying from both here and Duxford Satellite Station at Falmere, and also the Hurricanes of number 242 and 310 Squadrons. And today, for the first time in the finale of our Battle of Britain Air Show, we're going to recreate a big wing of both Spitfires and Hurricanes in close formation over Duxford. The aircraft that's going to be entertaining us for a few minutes while the big wing gets into flight like a flying fly. We've got here 2.46, and that's making the aircraft of the world uniquely to our world. We mentioned back at the start of the show the initial phase of the Battle of Britain. Well, from the 12th of August 1940, the